Hello, Collateral Gaming listeners. Chazzle Dazzle here from the Trial by Error Variety Show podcast. I just wanted to take a few seconds to invite you guys over to what we do. No, it's not video games, but we do invite really awesome and unique bands from all over the world. We dig deep into their souls and find really cool stories to tell you, and there's tons of music every week, so subscribe to us wherever you subscribe to your podcast. We look forward to having you.
I'm Ashley Chancellor, and this is Collateral Gaming. Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. I am podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas, and yes, my friends, this is a 420 friendly podcast. So whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it. Or if you're like me and you really need it because you're going to talk about a shitty game and you don't have weed on you, you can also drink a little bit. That's what I'm doing today. So, Superman 64. What a piece of shit. It's ass. It's complete ass. It's so much ass, I don't even know why I'm wasting any breath talking about it. But here we are. We're talking about Superman 64, or I am, because you know what? Nobody else wanted to play this shit either. I did get a chance to play it on original hardware. My friend and co-host from Collateral Cinema, Robert Ortegon, has a Nintendo 64 and had a copy of this game, believe it or not. So rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, I've been able to play Superman 64 in all of its glory. So I will say, if you're really intoxicated, you know, you got a lot of beer in you, you got some liquor, you got some weed. I mean, shit, if you need to do something a little bit harder, maybe some shrooms or acid. I don't know. Don't do meth. That's probably pretty bad for you. But if you're under the influence and you have cheat codes on and you're level skipping around, it's tolerable. You know, you can have a little bit of fun for maybe an hour or two, but don't get me wrong. This game is complete garbage. It is so much garbage. I have nothing but shit to talk about this game because it's a shitty game, and all it does is make you want to go shit yourself. Okay? I'd rather have shit all over my face than play Superman 64 again. All right? That's how much this game sucks ass. All right? So let's get a few things out of the way, okay? The game takes place in a virtual metropolis. That's right, it doesn't even take place in the real world. All you're doing is flying through rings and other bullshit. Superman doesn't even have all of his powers. All you get to do is collect little tokens and which temporarily give you power-ups. That is, of course, unless you're playing with cheat codes, which actually allows you to feel a little bit like Superman, but it's still fucking stupid whenever he gets staggered by things like bullets and shit. But maybe it all makes sense because he's in a virtual world, I guess? I don't know. But this doesn't even take place in the real world. None of it makes a fucking difference. Superman did jack shit. But I guess at least it kind of makes sense in the continuity. So here's the thing, all right? This game suffers from some production issues. Evidently, Warner Brothers and Titus did not completely get along, and basically everything had to be approved by Warner Brothers, and they were kind of shitty about it. So that's the reality, is there was some licensing differences and issues between WB, DC, and Titus Interactive, the unfortunate developers that had to produce this game. And let me tell you, it's very clearly an unfinished game. I think a lot of people played this game back when they were kids, and they didn't realize how bad it was. They just perceived it as being really hard. And it is really hard. But it's not hard in the challenging sense of like, oh, okay, here's a challenge for me. You know, there's no sense of satisfaction when you complete something. You're like, thank fucking God I don't have to do that again. All right. And just when you got through a part that was at least somewhat entertaining, then you have to fly through some more fucking rings. They had nothing better to do than have Superman fly through rings every other level. Dear Jesus, this game sucks. And it's not just like the training stage or whatever. Oh no, there's a whole other practice mode. And guess what's in the practice mode? More rings! But you finally get through that first level, flying through all of those rings, and you have 6 seconds to pick up a car and throw it, with barely any introduction on what you're supposed to do. There's no explanation of the controls. If you happen to pause the game and look at the controls, or maybe you have a website pulled up that breaks it down for you, you'll sort of understand. And once you do get a grasp of the control scheme, there is kind of a bit of satisfaction of Superman being able to fly around Metropolis. But that's the most fun I actually had in this game, was being able to fly around this lifeless Metropolis that's mostly just flat aerial views of buildings with a couple buildings here and there that you can fly around and some cars going around. But it's just completely empty. They managed to explain the lack of draw distance with quote-unquote kryptonite fog, but the lack of draw distance just doesn't work. I mean, compare it to a game like Silent Hill, right? Silent Hill is a more slow-paced game. It's a horror game. The lack of draw distance being explained by the fog actually contributes to the mystery. It makes the game more fun to play because you never know what's going to come around the corner. It's terrifying. But in this game, you're playing as Superman. You should be able to go wherever the fuck you want. And the more I played this game, the more it just made me want to play like a real modern good Superman game, which unfortunately we don't have. I think the closest thing we ever got to it was Superman Returns, but that game just suffers from a lack of any kind of coherent story or, anything besides the open metropolis to fly around. Why can't we have both? And this game just teases you, Like I said, when you've enabled the cheat codes and you have access to all of Superman's powers without having to access tokens, then you can kind of feel like Superman, but it's like if you played poker using only Monopoly money, and then someone was like, hey, you know what? You can throw a couple dollar bills in there, and then you kind of feel like you're playing poker with real money. That's what that's like, okay? I'm not going to waste your time talking a whole bunch about this game. There's not a lot to say other than it sucks dick. I couldn't get farther than the first few levels without cheat codes, okay? It's hard. And there's also no consistency, right? Most of the time, if you fail a challenge, you finally get through some fucking ring segments and you throw a couple cars, but you don't know what to do because it barely tells you anything and it gives you 6 seconds. Well, guess what? Now you have to go fly through the fucking rings again. And then you go fly through another stage of rings once you finally get your bearings and play it through that segment. And then you get to beat up some dudes, and then you get to use your super breath on some tornadoes. But if you manage to fail, it's back to rings again, because every other level is rings. I'm not kidding. Every other level in this game is flying through rings. It's a bunch of fucking padded bullshit. That's all that it is. Now, let me get back to what I was saying about the inconsistency, because sometimes if you do really well and you get through those ring stages really quickly, sometimes it gives you more time to complete those other missions, and you can actually restart at that level. But, hell if I know whether that was going to happen or not. Thank God I discovered the level skip glitch. After playing through, the first real mission level and being able to enable cheats, after that point I started just skipping all of the rings because they suck. And every once in a while, when you get to one of the real mission levels and you play around for a little bit and you get to fight some things, it's sort of entertaining for a little bit, but then you don't know what the fuck to do. So I just ended up level skipping halfway through because I don't know what the fuck to do and I don't care enough to look it up. That being said, I think I did eventually get through that very first mission segment, which takes place in this building, and then there's this underground sewer level, and the game gives you very little idea of what to do. So basically you collect this pass card and then you go forward and just discover that that you don't know what to do. But when you clicked at the pass card, it says something like go to the main computer. What you don't think to do is go back to the very beginning of the level in the first room that you were in, and there's actually a computer there that doesn't look really any different than the other computers, other than the fact that the other ones are busted. How was I supposed to know that was the main computer room? But you go back to the main computer room, and then you go all the way back through the level. Yes, this game has backtracking. And then you get to go through this segment where you go underwater, collect a little token passkey thing underground. It opens some side doors. You lower the water, and then you go talk to some people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, go do some bullshit." And at that point, I didn't know what the fuck to do, but it gives you super speed, and if you happen to go all the way back to the main computer again, then it gives you another place to go, and then you have to solve this weird puzzle where you try to spell out Lex Luthor's name. You try to spell out Luthor, and the game gives you barely any idea of what you're supposed to be doing. But I did manage to finally get through that level. I don't think I got through any of the other mission levels by myself, though. After that point, I think I just level skipped whenever I got bored. And I played through this game a couple of times like that, but it's not fun. There's nothing challenging about it. Like I said, if you're really intoxicated and you've got the cheats on and you can level skip whenever you feel like it, you can leave yourself somewhat entertained. But why would you do this when you could play a good game? Why would you play this whenever you could just watch the original Superman movies or the animated series that it happens to be based on? I will say that the game's graphics aren't terrible, and even the soundtrack is kind of okay, if not extremely repetitive. I mean, it does borrow heavily from the Superman animated series, and that's the look that it's going for. But I mean, it's not great. It's Nintendo 64 graphics, and not even good ones like Super Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. You know, it's just okay at best. The characters resemble their animated series counterparts. I don't know if the soundtracks are actually borrowed from the animated series or not. They're kind of epic sounding, but they loop and loop and loop and loop, and it's just it doesn't really help. Again, the game gives you very little direction. You don't really know what the controls are. You have to figure them out. Once you get a handle on the controls, you can fly Superman around and sort of feel accomplished, and you can actually kind of get through the game. But it's not the Superman game that it should have been, and we can chalk that up to hardware limitations, sure. But I've played some good games on the Nintendo 64. Maybe this was too ambitious. Maybe we couldn't have a Superman game. But this piece of shit could have been decent. It could have been okay, but it wasn't. It was complete ass. It's considered one of the very worst video games of all time. Hold on a second. I'm going to take a drink.
Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen have been kidnapped. Who will save the day? You are Superman. All the powers are yours. Flight, heat vision, super speed, super strength, freezing breath, and X-ray vision. Buy early and receive a DC Comics Collector's Edition Superman comic book. Superman, the New Adventures video game.
But, ladies and gentlemen, Superman, the New Superman Adventures, or as the box art says, Superman, the New Superman Adventures. Even the box art was done shabbily. Is not a fun game by any means. It's hard and not in the good way. The world just feels lifeless. There's very little to do, and there's no sense of accomplishment whenever you finally completed something. You just think, hey, now I can go on to do something better. It's like when we played Sonic 06. You know, I spent a lot of time playing this game just so that I could talk about it. That's what I did. For our fans, for our loyal listeners. I subjected myself to this shit while my friends, my co-hosts, Bo and Robert, were watching me and asking, Ash, why are you still playing this? And I said, for the podcast, bro. It's for the podcast. Because I love you guys. I love you enough to play a piece of shit. And I don't know what I'm going to say for another 15 minutes or so, because I can't have this be shorter than 30 minutes. But this game just sucks. Let's see. Maybe we can pull up a little bit of development history here, okay? Or maybe I can just read a copy pasta on screen. That would probably be better than playing Superman 64. Is listening to me do a copy pasta. Just a live copy pasta reading. So, again, like I said, this game had a lot of hampering done. So, obviously the game is very much not unpolished. I like how the Wikipedia page says that, leaving little room for polishing the gameplay. Polishing? This wasn't finished. And if you were little and you happened to be one of the unfortunate souls that played this game, thinking it was going to be a badass Superman adventure, then you were in for a lot of disappointment. So, let's see. By the way, if you're playing through this, get used to Lex Luthor's laugh, because you're going to hear it a lot. That's all this game ever is just Lex laughing at you. On top of it, to add insult to injury, the game fucking laughs at you, saying, "Ha ha ha ha, you're wasting your time playing this stupid bullshit." You know what? Maybe this game does have a good story. Maybe that's the point. Maybe Lex Luthor wanted to put Superman through hell, and so he threw him into a virtual world where he controls like ass. I don't know. Let me compile for you a list of things that are better to do than play Superman 64, okay? Go vacuum your house. Go vacuum your house, mop your house, dust everything off, and do every little chore that you can think of. That's better than playing Superman 64, all right? Go drink an entire bottle of magnesium citrate and sit on the toilet for 30 minutes. While your shit burns through you because you've been constipated for 2 weeks. That would be better than playing Superman 64. Stick your head in a fucking bathtub filled with shit and breathe it all in. That would be better than playing Superman 64. Do you get the point now? You could literally fill your time doing anything other than playing Superman 64. All right? Seriously. Some of the later levels are... I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say about the later levels, to be completely honest with you. I mean, there's one level that has kind of a puzzle where, you know, you can read this little letter that tells you what order to click on these colored computers, but you could also just go through trial and error and figure it out. So that's what you do with the other puzzles in the game, like the unscramblers with like the Lex Luthor puzzle I mentioned earlier on. And sometimes I was just completely befuddled. I had no idea what to do. So I kept going back to the same area. And then after a couple of times of trying to go through the same door, eventually it actually lets me go through. Why? I don't know. And then you're thrown into kryptonite. But you just get through these, you know, you just click on these little computers and you get through that. And then it throws you back into the main room. I think Darkseid is in this game. Yeah, Darkseid is in this game. Oh, he doesn't go out with much of a... He goes out with not much of a fight. In fact, all of the bosses do. The bosses are jokes. You can kill them in a couple hits. Less if you have the super punch turned on with via the cheat codes menu. By the way, most people may not know this because they didn't get far enough into the game to really find out. But you can save. If you finally get to the very first actual mission of the game, you can save, but my friend Robert, who had this game, didn't even know that there was more to do after that. He'd never gotten past it. He never even realized that there were more ring segments. This game, half of it is just flying through rings, and there's no fun in that. Why the fuck is Superman flying through rings? Because it's a virtual world? Lex Luthor says something like, if you want to save your friends, then you'll have to go through my maze. What maze? You left a few fucking rings in the sky, and you're on a timer with barely enough time to get through all of them. If you, God forbid, you miss a ring, but if you do, you're better off just leaving it and going through the next one. You have a few grace rings to get through, but not enough to be able to play through the game competently. The controls just suck dick. Superman is completely just unable to control. And I don't think anybody could master this game. I mean, we've talked before about older games with harder controls because of hardware limitations, but you could master those controls. You could compensate for the handling, and you could get used to it, and you could get good at it, dare I say. You know, if we're talking about Super Mario Kart or Mario Kart 64, if we're talking about Super Metroid, these are games that are a little bit hard to control but can be mastered. This game cannot be. It's completely unpredictable. You don't know what you're going to do, and you don't get hardly any direction on how to do it. Or should I say, you get hardly any direction on how to do it. I don't think I'm going to edit this podcast, so that little slip up is in there. I'm sorry I used a double negative. Sue me. But, yeah. Or should I say, don't even get me started on the escort missions, if you even get to those. There's a couple missions in the game where you have to escort people like Lois Lane, and you have to wait for them. It's the very worst an escort mission could possibly be. I mean, we've all played escort levels in video games, right? So this one just, if you leave Lois or any of these other citizens alone for a fraction of a second, they'll get caught by goons. Sometimes you actually have to freeze them to prevent them from getting hit by bullets. Yeah, Superman uses his freeze breath to freeze them. Why? I don't know. I guess because it's a virtual world. It makes no sense. All of the enemies are fucking jokes. But, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what else to say about this game. It's bad. Don't play it. You can watch some playthroughs online if you really want to, or just listen to some reviews like this one. Superman 64 is just a blight on this earth. It is literally one of the lowest points of gaming. You know when like boomers are always telling you that video games are bad for you? They're talking about this game. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about Superman 64. I guarantee it. They unfortunately gave it to one of their kids. I feel bad for anyone that really hadn't had much exposure to Superman, or even someone who had and had expected something great and had to play this piece of shit. They might as well have just sat on a dildo, because that's how much it would have hurt. That would have hurt less than playing Superman 64. Okay? So, final thoughts. It's ass! That's it. It's ass. Don't play it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, because I sure didn't. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes. In the month of December, we are going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, and I'm really excited about it. We're actually going to be doing both our anniversary and holiday special, so kind of getting two birds with one stone with a two-part episode on that. And then in January, we're going to be talking about Mario and Luigi's Superstar Saga. That's right. One of the best GBA games of all time, in my opinion, part of the best RPG Mario spin-off series. and definitely one of the best games in that series, but not the best. Bowser's Inside Story deserves that recognition. But it was Zach's choice. It was a lot of nostalgia. I've been playing through the 3DS remake, actually, and been having a blast with it. So stay tuned for Superstar Saga. And then in February, we're going to be talking about Elden Ring. That's right, we're doing a game launch review on that. Also, we're going to be participating in a live stream event of the game whenever it comes out with former guest host and Megan's brother Agony. So I'm really excited to talk about that because that's been one of the most anticipated games of this year, and it's going to be amazing. But ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or feedback on your platform of choice. You can find Collateral Gaming wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, you name it. And if we're not somewhere, let us know. Hey, if you want to collab with us, please hit us up in the DMs. We're also on social media. You can find Collateral Gaming on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And we try to stay pretty active on those social medias. So it's a lot of fun. And I'm really excited to get into some of the other games that we're going to be talking about this season. Seriously, we have a lot of bangers coming up. And Collateral Cinema as well. We just recorded at the time of this recording, most recent episode on Bolero featuring Shocked and Applaud and Chazzle Dazzle from the Trial by Error variety show, who is going to be, I think, recording with us in the future. So we've got our upcoming Christmas special on Collateral Cinema on Last Ounce of Courage. We're also doing Neil Breen's Fateful Findings that month. So December is kind of a bad movie review month for Collateral Cinema, and I'm really excited to just rag on this shit because it was fun. As much as it was not fun to play, it was fun to rag on Superman 64 and just have a laugh at it. So anywho, y'all have a wonderful happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate, or if you don't celebrate anything, have a happy month all the same. We're excited to celebrate more with you. And that being said, I've been Ashley Chancellor. This is Collateral Gaming, and we are out. Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.